Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Where today, am I the jerk for telling my wife that if she's not home in 10 minutes, I'm taking her dog to the pound? My wife, who's 29, and I, 33 male, have been married for 4 years now. I'm the sole breadwinner and she stays at home. For the majority of these 4 years, my wife has wanted a dog. I absolutely despise dogs. I was attacked by one when I was a teenager and I still have scars from it. About 6 months ago, my wife adopted a shelter dog without giving me any notice. I got home one day to find a dog staring at me. I legitimately thought that the dog had just wandered in when the door was open or something, but my wife came and explained the situation, that we had a new family member. This dog has obvious mental and emotional problems. These problems are so bad that if you leave it alone for more than 30 minutes, he'll start destroying furniture. I know this because that's exactly what happened the last time we left it alone for more than 30 minutes. It destroyed the upholstery on a $4,000 sofa. After that happened, my wife promised to take care of it. Due to the nature of my job, I'm often away for work. Occasionally, these work trips involve sitting around and twiddling my thumbs. Other times, 20-hour days every day. My most recent trip was a 2-week marathon of the latter. I was in a foreign country where workers' rights aren't exactly taken seriously. I got home this morning. After a 12-hour flight, I walked in the door at about 5 a.m. My wife was still asleep. I went straight to bed in the guest room as she's a light sleeper and I didn't want to wake her up. A few hours later, I heard her getting ready. I woke up to greet her and she told me that she was going out for the day. I asked where and she said she had a spa day planned. Problems. 1. I was insanely sleep deprived and stressed out. 2. I was going to have to watch the dog all day. I told her no. She responded by telling me that she hadn't been able to get her nails and hair done for 2 weeks because of my trip and she had to watch the dog the whole time. I told her tough luck, but I wasn't going to watch a dog all day in my state. She literally ran out the door waving goodbye to me, got in her car and left. At first, the dog and I had a little staring contest until he started barking at me for some reason. Then I got an idea, and since my wife was only a few minutes away, I sent her a text. Hey babe, if you're not home in 10 minutes, your dog is going to the pound. I was fully ready to follow through, but my wife read my text, turned around and came home. She then spent the following 20 minutes shrieking and has been in a foul mood since. Did I do anything wrong here? Please rehome the poor dog. You hate it, and your wife sounds like she isn't mature enough to care for a dog, never mind a rescue with emotional problems. That dog is going to have a really bad life with you, and it deserves better. I'm gonna have to go with not the jerk on this situation though. Your wife shouldn't have brought a dog into the home knowing how you feel about them. Not a jerk. What your wife did was a psycho move in my opinion. Whoever decides to get a pet against the wishes of their partner is an immediate jerk. You would have been well within your right to rehome that dog immediately and it should be rehomed, whether it's the best for the dog or not. It's not your job to make this dog's life better, and if your wife thinks it's her job to make this dog's life better, or save it, over your well-being, she's delusional and suffers a pretty bad case of main character syndrome. However, as a word of caution, don't stare dogs straight in the eyes unless you're established as their superior. It's a confrontation, and while dogs don't usually get physical over staring contests, they show signs of aggression if you're not familiar with them or on friendly terms. I don't say this to judge you, just as a hint for things you can do to avoid scenarios like the one that led to your rehoming idea. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for choosing my budget over my boyfriend this Halloween? I, 28 female, own my house, and my boyfriend, who's 29, moved in January. We had a ton of early money arguments and agreed that we would keep to a household budget. Also, he agreed to pay down his credit card debt. I have more flexibility in my personal spending than he does. Early after we moved in, my boyfriend told me that as a kid, he always wanted to live in one of those houses that were totally decorated for trick-or-treating and handed out full-sized candy. Here's where I messed up. I took this as a comment and not a plan. When the end of September came, we went to the Halloween store and he was under the impression he had savings for this. I didn't know. And he was under the impression we had savings for this. I didn't know. We go over the monthly budget together and it was never listed. When he found out that there was no Halloween savings, we had an argument. Afterwards, I talked to my friends who all said he had talked about trick-or-treating extensively and how much it meant. I chalked this one up to a misunderstanding on my part. So I came up with $500 of my money and I went to him with an apology. Okay, are we serious right now? He decided to buy one big piece, an animatronic clown and some lights. It burned through the $500, plus he put a little on his own credit card. He wanted another big piece and was mad that I wouldn't put it on my credit card. I asked if he wanted to put up homemade decorations or spider webs, but he said that would look cheap. A few weeks later, we had a fight over the candy. He was still stuck on buying full-sized bars. We easily get over 250 trick-or-treaters, and I said we just don't have that much money. So we got the bulk bags of good small bars. I also had these little coloring books for the allergy and diabetes kids. Jump forward to Halloween. Early kids show up, and he's letting them grab handfuls. I remind him how we have a ton of trick-or-treaters coming, and he got really annoyed. I had ordered a pizza for us, so I get it and go inside for about 10 minutes. By the time I came back out, the trick-or-treat bowls were empty. He had been dumping a third of a bowl in each kid's bag and had given out all the coloring books to whatever kids came along. He told me that I'd have to go run out and buy more candy on my credit card. I said I wasn't going to do that, and it wasn't my fault. He just handed out 20 pounds of candy. He started yelling right there in front of the kids, and I told him to come inside. He responded that he wasn't stopping trick-or-treating even if there was no candy. I told him to have fun with the clown and went inside. He came in 15 minutes later, then he demanded that I leave for the night so that he could clear his head. He argued it was fair because I had already eaten and it was my fault that trick-or-treating was ruined because I'm cheap. I handed the rest of the pizza to him and I refused. He left and went to a friend's house, and I guess they spent the rest of the night drinking, handing out trick-or-treat candy, and texting me how awful and cheap I am. Am I the jerk? You're only the jerk if you stay with this guy. He sounds like a bozo. A lot of the debt is understandable. He spent part of his childhood in foster care, and his parents kicked him out when he was 18 with nothing really. He went into debt early to pay for his basic needs, never really learned how to have financial literacy. Only when I pointed it out did he start to pay more than the minimum on his debts and start to work his way out of it. He had a really toxic childhood, and this is his first real stable situation. Apparently, trick-or-treating was the time he sort of got to see clean and stable homes, and he got more to eat out of that candy than he did at home. Having this big Halloween display, to him it was a sign that someone had made it. I really didn't understand how much it meant to him, but his friends are on me about it. Why are you with this guy? Does he pay anything resembling rent? Has he ever shown any signs of financial responsibility? OP, he makes me laugh. And yeah, after we sort of had a dragged out fight over finances early on, he has paid his half into the household fund every month, budget covering everything that is communal, mortgage, utilities, etc. I have my own money and he has his. We earn similar, but because he's working on debt, he ends up having less personal money than I do. After we had an argument the first month, I set up a monthly house budget that just covers communal things, and he has been contributing his half to it since. So half the mortgage, utilities, etc. Because so much of his money is going to debt, I have more flexible personal budget, and I put money into savings. But yeah, financially he pulls his weight, and he spent the summer being compulsive about having a perfect lawn, so it's not like he's useless around the house. Update. 3 months ago, basically the whole internet told me to break up with my boyfriend. 2 days ago, I finally ended it. Everyone, and I do mean everyone, online, basically said I was in the right and said some truly dire things about my relationship. I won't lie, there was so much anger towards him, I sort of shut down. When I started getting requests from actual news sources for more information, I just basically logged out and just decided to forget anything ever happened. We met the next day, as he had spent a few nights at a friend's house. I said that for things to continue, we needed couples counseling, and I expected him to set up the whole thing. He was surprisingly open to this and said he would work on it, and that's where things started to unravel. Our mutual friends had been in his corner, complaining about me, but I found out the story that he had told them was way off from the truth. In his version, I prevented any money for Halloween and had gone cheap on trick-or-treat candy and was only handing it out to kids that I liked. Once they sort of heard my version, backed up with pics and receipts, support went to me. In fact, his friends have been giving him a lot of ribbing about how he acted, which my now ex hates. In the meantime, he's been working on getting us counseling, but found that getting therapy on his insurance meant months-long waiting list. So instead, he came up with this couples coach who was religious. I'm not religious, and I wasn't thrilled by this, but I figured it was better than nothing. Our first meeting was only 3 days after I posted. One funny thing that came up was that my ex immediately handed over a printout of the household budget and the coach praised it. But the coach thought my ex was the one who wrote it and that I was failing to follow it. So what followed was this weird thing where my ex wanted all the praise, but also wanted the coach to badmouth the budget because my ex hates it. It took the better part of the first session to explain to him the actual situation, and the coach was weird about the fact that it was me in the relationship dictating money, even though he liked the budget itself. This was a lot of issues later, actually. The next day, one of our friends found the Reddit post and sent it to my ex. All heck broke loose with him saying that I had betrayed his trust. Our next couples coaching session was all about that, and honestly, I felt terrible for airing his dirty laundry. The coach and my ex both went off on me for the fact that I had publicly humiliated my ex. Obviously, I'm updating, so I don't care about embarrassing my ex anymore. He has this username and will probably read this. Whatever. One thing that was seemingly positive at first about the coaching was the coach pointed out that my ex had never had the ability to have holiday traditions because of his upbringing. I genuinely felt bad about this, and rolling into Christmas made a huge attempt to incorporate him into my family's traditions and to ask him if there's anything he wanted to do. He responded by insulting my family's traditions, and his only contribution was to suggest something really extravagant that would have cost a fortune. I swear he only did this just to badmouth me when I said no. This was all bookmarked by our twice-a-week visits to the couples coach, who I increasingly hated. He would go through super religious prayers and having issues with us living together before marriage. Neither my ex or I responded positively to this. But my ex would really get into it when the coach was talking about how he should be the head of the household. When I said I'd prefer moving to a regular therapist, my ex said I was undermining his work getting us help. There's a dozen little things that happened in there where I should have broken up with him, but last week was the real final straw. Ever since my ex found the post that I had made on Reddit, he's been obsessed with going through my phone. Because of my career, I wouldn't let him. I have a lot of emails and accesses on my phone to sensitive information in regards to work. I made a compromise that he could ask who I was texting, etc., and I'd show him at any point. This wasn't good enough. I don't know how he got into my phone, but he went through it fully and started raging out that I was keeping things from him. But none of it had any relation to him. Like I had a group chat where we were planning a wedding shower for a friend. He's only met this friend in passing. He knew I was helping to plan it, but was mad that I hadn't let him know every little detail. Specifically, we were surprising the bride by flying in her aunt, who she rarely sees. I wasn't contributing to this financially, I just knew about it. And somehow, my not telling him that specific little thing was keeping secrets. We were still fighting over this when we went to a party with friends. Apparently, in digging through my old chats, he found where a friend of mine had talked to me in confidence of a tragedy she went through. Only her husband and sisters were really in the know. My ex was drunk and started talking about this loudly to her with her husband right there. Her husband told him to shut up, and my ex basically got all superior about knowing things and there not being secrets. It was very close to being a fight. I told him not to come back to my house after that, and he seems really shocked we broke up. I'm still numb about all of this, but yeah, him, never again. Update. The ex finally came by to pick up his stuff about a week ago. He's hemmed and hawed about this now since he left. Initially, he only took the bare essentials and has drug his feet. I think he thought that I'd take him back. Finally, he shows up with a friend to get his stuff. Every single thing he pulls out of the house, he's snidely telling me that I will miss having it. But before he moved in, I had a fully furnished house. His contributions were either things that only he used or stuff that I had duplicates of. Except for the clown. When that finally came up, he was angry. He said that he was now living out of his friend's bedroom and doesn't have room to either store it or to display it at Halloween. So he wanted me to pay him back for it. I pointed out that I had paid for it in the first place. He has this whole alternate scenario where I had given him the money to buy it as a gift. Therefore, it was his money and I had to repay him. An argument broke out. He stormed out with his stuff and left the clown. I sold it for $200 and I look forward to visiting it in a proper long-term Halloween setup. The boyfriend is the clown. People say Reddit promotes breaking up too fast, and to that I say, see the post. Jerks don't become better as they age. You should invest in wine or kimchi instead. I used my meal plan to feed over 120 less fortunate people. This happened my freshman year of college about 20 years ago. My university had just invested in a big new dining hall, and to help pay for their investment required all new students to buy a 150 meal plan both semesters. This was a big financial burden being from a lower middle class family, but my parents pooled funds to help me out and make it happen. Shortly into my first semester, I found out from friends the meals you didn't use didn't roll over. Since I lived off campus, I knew I wouldn't be able to use them all. Heading into November, I realized I would end up with 60 to 75 meals left over, and I complained about this a lot to my family and friends because it seemed like such a waste. In comes the plan. My freshman year of college was also my cousin's senior year, and we hung out pretty often. He was the biggest trickster and prankster type you ever met. One night while we were drinking, he says, "What if you brought a bunch of homeless people to use up your meals? How much would that upset those self-righteous jerks?" We laughed all night, but the more I thought about the idea, the more I really started to like it. We talked all weekend about it, and we hatched up a plan. On Monday morning, we went down to the local Salvation Army around the corner. I've grown to really despise this organization, but in the early 2000s in small-town USA, it's what we had. We told the lady at the desk I would like to feed people in need with my meal plan. She was hesitant at first, but said that she was working with people that this would be a huge blessing to, especially during the holiday season. She helped me organize 2 days that following week where around 30 people would meet me to eat at the dining hall. I would wear a certain hat so they could find me, and we would go eat. The day finally arrived, and all kinds of people were there. There were homeless people in tattered clothes. There were families with kids that seemed excited to go out to eat. There was even one family I will always remember that seemed embarrassed to take a handout, but I made an effort to talk to everybody and make them feel welcome. At noon, we headed into the dining hall. I walked up to the lady at the entrance and said, "These people are with me. They're my friends. I would like to swipe them in." She looked confused, but reluctantly said okay. To say we got every reaction humanly possible would be an understatement. There were staff that were obviously annoyed with this influx of diners. There were students that were laughing. There were students that were giving me the silent clap. There were snobbish faculty members that seemed to be disgusted at the type of people coming into the dining hall. I didn't care at all. Eventually, a head staff member came up to me and said they knew what I was doing and they didn't like it. I said, "These are my friends eating with me. I paid for these meals. Am I doing anything wrong?" She was stumped. The next day, the same situation happened with the same reactions. It seemed that I had caused quite a stir on campus, and it just so happened that the university president was eating there that day. She came up to me and said even though she would ask that I not tell my friends to do the same thing with their meals as the staff couldn't handle the influx of diners, she was proud that her students had the heart to do something for others like this. The following semester, I did the exact same thing. I even used my meals sparingly so I could bring more people. The one memory that will always stick out in my head is the family with the little kids so excited to go to the pizza bar and soft-serve ice cream machine, giggling the whole time. To this day, it's still one of the proudest moments of my life. Me and my friends and family still have a drink and chuckle over this story and the snooty, angry reactions that I got. Idiot fiance breaks up with me, ruins his own life. I'm 27, female. Last week, my fiance, who's 29, male, we'll call him Mason, broke up with me because I told him that I didn't want to leave my job and move across the country so he could be a streamer. I make very good money here in Minneapolis. My family's here, and I love the scenery of the area, outside of the city, of course. My ex was basically a stay-at-home boyfriend. He only worked 20 hours a week as a barista at Starbucks that's literally a 5-minute walk from our apartment. I worked as a NICU nurse, and I made good money, so I was never worried about our financials. What worried me was that despite Mason having a biology degree, he was never able to get a full-time biology job. I think he was never even looking in the first place. I told Mason that I would be happy to help him pay for the master's and PhD program he was supposedly interested in doing, but he never put in the work to do any research into it or apply. Instead, he was obsessed with the idea of becoming a streamer and moving to LA. But Mason never had time to stream or work on building a social media presence. He has literally 2 followers on Twitch, and the last time he streamed was a year ago. I paid for everything: the apartment, our groceries, his medication, his pet fish, all of our dates that I always planned. But despite working crazy hours, I was always the one grocery shopping on my way home and cleaning the dishes and cooking and doing laundry. The only thing he would do consistently was clean his fish tank and turn on the Roomba. But sure, I'm the problem when I tell him to stop piling the trash up 12 inches over the edge of the bin and actually take it out. And I'm the problem when I told him that I was not going to leave my job and pay for us to move to LA and leave my entire family behind when he's literally done nothing to make his own aspirations come true. Dude sits at home for 50 hours a week eating Takis and playing video games that he isn't even streaming and expects me to cook dinner as soon as I get home from the hospital. So we had a fight and he broke up with me. Genius move. So I canceled the lease on my apartment and I'm staying with my sister while I go house hunting and deleting every trace of that idiot from my life. He's tried calling and texting me, but I'm done with his leeching. I just wish other people could see through his carefully crafted lies because I've lost 2 friends who are just eating up his sob story. Can't believe I'm such a mean girlfriend who won't be my man's mommy. Wow, you're such an amazing woman to have supported this man so much financially. You deserve someone way better. Maybe it's best you don't marry him. I mean, don't you want someone with more substance and contribution to the living situation? This whole thing sucks. I'm sorry you're going through this. OP. Oh, absolutely. But I didn't think it would always be like this. I was under the impression that he wanted to get his PhD in biology and work professionally in that field until recently. I thought he was genuinely struggling to get interviews and to get accepted into a program. I mean, if I was working super hard and trying to get into a PhD program, I would want my partner to be supportive of me. But in reality, he wasn't working towards that at all. He just decided he didn't want to and have to grow up, I guess. I'm just a bartender and you know everything? Okay, have a nice shower. This happened about 10 years ago now. I had been working in catering and hospitality, managing pubs, for about 10 years at that stage. The catering company I worked for had come up short-staffed for a small function/festival that they were putting on. Probably max 200 people at a venue that they controlled. I was in a different division, but was asked to help out on the bar and the bump in and out. Easy enough, and the music was looking pretty good, so I agreed. It was in the middle of spring. The weather had not yet been really warm yet, so we were just expecting decent numbers, but nothing special. Bringing in the bar was easy enough. The venue was massive and easily able to accommodate the truck, etc. Having a single mobile bar with just 1 tap instead of 3 was probably on the light side, but I figured the venue manager knew what he was doing. So I introduced myself to him and I got to work. I unloaded and brought all of the gear and beverages in, and I made a couple of attempts to discuss how we had set up the service area. Each time I was shut down with progressively more aggressive language until he finally told me, "I've run dozens of functions at this venue. I know how to set it up. We really only asked for a bartender." Okay, no problem, I thought. I didn't mention to him that it had been me who had picked up the truck from the warehouse, collected the bar and 10 kegs from our supplier, as well as the other beverage package and delivered it to him, or that I was the only one able to bump it all out at the end of the evening. So I just agreed with whatever he said and I set up what he wanted. So the weather ended up being a beautiful day, about 27 Celsius, 80 Fahrenheit, with a light breeze, and the turnout was more like 400, much better than expected. Pretty quickly it turned out that we were struggling to keep up with bar service, so I suggested that rather than a traditional service, we should have one person on the till, one person constantly pouring beers, like never shutting off the tap, and one person filling other drinks, wine, soft drinks, etc. Again, I was snapped at by the now clearly stressed venue supervisor. "You just keep serving and let me do the thinking." Okay, so now I've had enough. Customers were getting frustrated at the slow service, and this peanut was too proud to accept advice from someone far more experienced. And then the keg blew. I was about to change it when the peanut stepped in and said that he would take care of it. I checked that he knew what he was doing and was assured he had done it 100 times and to back off and leave him to it, so I did. I watched him not uncouple the gas line and go straight for the beer lock. Happily, he had his face right in front of the spot, so as soon as he cracked the lock, he copped a huge spray in the face of a nice warm beer foam. All through his hair and all over his glasses, wet all down the front of his shirt as well. It was glorious, and the first 30 people in line thought so as well because they had witnessed some of his antics. I didn't hear much out of him for the rest of the day. He asked me to change the kegs when needed and pretty much stayed away from the service area. We streamlined things as well, and although it didn't end up a success as far as customer satisfaction, it was not the disaster that was brewing. Wake me up with your alarm? Guess my day starts now too. I, 28 female, live with my boyfriend, 29 male, and one roommate who's 35 male, in a house that I own. They both work at the same company, so their workday starts at 6 a.m. I work from home, so I sleep and get up pretty much whenever I want. It's worth noting that I'm a very light sleeper, and my boyfriend is a fairly heavy sleeper that I usually have to wake up despite his alarm. My boyfriend's alarm goes off at 5:30. He usually gets dressed and heads to work by 5:40, which is fine. In those 10 minutes, I'll pack his lunch, make him coffee, and get him set up for the day. My roommate, however, has a very loud, blaring alarm that goes off every 5 minutes between 5 and 5:30 when he finally rolls out of bed and gets ready. Even on weekends, he'll sometimes let his alarm go off until 6, until it finally shuts off on its own. It's very annoying. I have no idea why he sets his alarm to be so loud that the whole house has to hear it, especially since he's also a light sleeper, supposedly, and has expressed before that me watching TV in my room at night keeps him up, even if I close the door. If the alarm was quieter, I wouldn't care, but at that point, he wakes up my dogs, and he's even woken my boyfriend's daughter, who's 3, who stays with us on occasion. Needless to say, once that first alarm goes off at 5, I'm awake, and so is everyone else. I don't know if you've ever dealt with a toddler being unwillingly woken up at 5 a.m., but it's not pretty, especially since she usually wakes up between 9:30 and 10. I've asked him a number of times if he could just turn down the alarm a little so he doesn't wake up the whole house. He refuses to do so. Cue petty revenge. My wake-up routine usually involves taking a shower, then doing the dishes and cleaning, caring for the dogs, etc. If we have the baby, I'll make breakfast and put on a show for her to watch while she wakes up. 2 of my 3 dogs are fairly large, so they make noise when I let them out of their crates and feed them. So the past few days, I've been dragging myself out of bed at 5 and starting my routine, none of which I do quietly. I'm awake anyway, and it's my house, so I can do what I want. The toddler will usually fall asleep again on the couch, even if I turn on the TV, so I put a show on for her at a normal volume, at 5. My dogs are energetic, so I let them out of their crates to run around, at 5. Dishes? 5 a.m. TikToks in the living room, 5 again. Wake me up at 5, that's when my day will start. I haven't gotten much out of my roommate, except for dirty looks and the occasional, "Why are you awake?" to which I simply respond with, "Because you woke me up." He's not the sharpest tool in the shed, so he started to complain that I'm being petty for no reason. I again suggested for him to turn down the alarm or at least lessen the frequency, but he's refused to do so. Guess we'll all just keep waking up at 5. Except for my boyfriend, of course. He can sleep through virtually anything. Bless his heart. I should go wake him. Edit. A lot of people are asking the same stupid questions, and I'm tired of answering them. Yes, I pack my boyfriend's lunch in the morning. Yes, it's because I want to. No, nobody is in danger. Yes, I've tried talking to my roommate. No, I don't care what anyone thinks about our parenting and dog rearing. I just thought I'd share a silly little story about a small way I got back at my crappy roommate. This has gotten so out of control, I'm not going to answer any more comments. If you want more info, read what's already been written. To those of y'all who made me laugh and or gave me alternate suggestions on how to deal with him, thank you. I'll definitely keep some of this in mind as I move forward. Off topic perhaps, but why doesn't he do his own lunch, make his own coffee, and set himself up for the day? Do you have 3 toddlers living with you? OP. Why? Because I do it for him. He doesn't care either way, but I enjoy doing it because I know he appreciates it. He tells me all the time, and also I love him. I'm okay with everything you did except putting your dogs in crates. OP. Thankfully, I came here to talk about my petty revenge, not ask people what they thought about my parenting or dog rearing. You certainly did. I, on the other hand, came to the comment section solely to disapprove of the fact that you put your dogs in crates after reading your story. If I had a partner like that, I would let them sleep until noon until they figured out how to adult and take care of their kid. Video screen for a toddler first thing in the morning? You're kidding, right? There are so many red flags. Frankly, I would kick the bunch of them to the curb and not look back. You pack his lunch? OP. Why are so many people hung up on this? Yes, I pack his lunch. I want to. It's something I contribute to the relationship. He's not forcing me. What does this have to do with anything? Is your partner an adult or not? Why are you packing his lunch and getting him set up for the day like he's a baby boy going to school? Is he incapable of looking after himself? When I read crap like this, I cringe so hard. Does the school bus toot for him too? Does he need a little lunchbox? Edit. You also have a kid, so you're working full-time and you have 2 kids to look after. Your man needs to pull his weight and stop treating you like his mom. Edit 2. So you both work, yet you do all the childcare, house cleaning, and pet care? And your partner does what? Treat you like a maid? OP. My goodness. Have you people never heard of doing small things for your partner to make their life better? He's perfectly capable of doing this stuff himself and has done it himself for a long time. But I took over because it doesn't inconvenience me to do so. And yes, I love him and I enjoy doing these things for him. For goodness sake, not everyone gets bitter and resentful when they put effort into their partner's happiness. It's my choice and has nothing to do with the rest of my post. Also, I have no idea what you're talking about. I work from home and I'm only part-time, and I wrote multiple times that we only have the baby on occasion, not 24/7. Find something else to be mad about. Goodness gracious.
This is why I never talk about nice things I do for Reddit, boy. I don't want to deal with the wrath of the people on Reddit.
But you don't do anything nice for me, Karen.
Silence, you fool.
Manager targeted me because of my family priorities. It cost her her job. I have worked at a certain home improvement store for close to a decade now, about 8 years roughly. The first 7 was in North Carolina before I moved up further north to be with my best friend and her husband, who I learned was pregnant with my first godchild. As such, I transferred up to a store in the area and put my nose to the grindstone. I worked garden before and did that for some months before I started to be moved from department to department as this store was low on staff. However, this was not full-time. My old HR had dropped the ball and this store believed I wanted part-time. Having already moved, I grabbed a part-time overnight job at a gym to make ends meet and continued to work, all the while asking repeatedly for full-time at the main job and never getting a definitive word back or change. Several months into this, my goddaughter was born. As I lived with my friends during this time, and during the time of lockdown, I spent quite a lot of time helping to raise her, and we became close. I would take time off that I was allotted to help look after her, and there were no problems. Half a year into this change, and I had made a good name for myself. I did not have a good deal of friends per se, but I was respected for my work ethic and willingness to help out anyone in any department that asked me. Enter a new assistant manager. The ASM was abrasive to staff and used to getting her way. The first I heard of her was when she outright fired a girl working the front desk because of a logo on her jacket. Myself and several other employees organized a walkout in protest of this and succeeded in getting the store manager to reverse the decision made by the ASM. This was not our first walkout, having done this in the past whenever another ASM, the current's predecessor, made mean comments about a cashier. Soon after this, I was given full-time by the ops manager, working and receiving for a cantankerous supervisor. We often did not get along, especially as my godchild got older, and I took on babysitting duties while her parents worked and slept. It was not something I minded, as I adored the kid. I often talked about her with my coworkers and loved to show pictures and stories. However, this was not something shared by my higher-ups. My supervisor was upset that I could not work overtime to help him, as we were the only 2 in receiving for the store, because of either my second job or babysitting. And soon after the second walkout, I was made aware of a rumor circulating around the store that the kid was in fact my own daughter, that I had fathered outside of my friend's husband's knowledge. The source of the rumor was unknown, but my ASM had made disparaging remarks to me in the past about men taking care of kids, so I had my theories. My holiday plans, asked off in advance as soon as our electronic system allowed, were canceled without explanation, both Thanksgiving and Christmas. I had never missed a major holiday since I moved north, and I had asked the same days off the year prior and had gotten them off before the ASM arrived. Strike one. And soon after this, my supervisor, whom I work closely with every day, had a positive test, forcing me, per company rules, to self-isolate until I could get a positive or negative test myself. During this week, as it took a full week to find a place with enough room to give tests, I was harassed repeatedly by text and phone call by both management and my supervisor to track down an at-home test and get back to work ASAP. All the while, I had to inform everyone I was in contact with, including my friends, family, and roommates, that I had been exposed, risking their own holiday trips and plans. Strike two. Thankfully, my test was negative. A week after this, the Northeast gets slammed by a snow and ice storm. I drive a 4-wheeled vehicle and so made it in, but near the end of my shift, I was made aware that my friend's husband had been injured and stranded in a car accident on the ice, and so left to get them home and their car to a service station. To add to it all, they have lost power in their home with an infant, leaving me the only person they could turn to with a vehicle and power. I will admit, I had a few sick hours left, but informed work that I would be out on a family emergency. For that week, I called out each day with ongoing family emergency, with snow and ice still coating the streets and power still down throughout our city. And every day I was hounded by calls from management, demanding I return to work regardless. This would have not only risked my own safety, but would have stranded my family at my apartment with no way to get supplies or get home once the power returned. Strike 3. I was done. Early in the morning that following Sunday, I walked into work and placed my resignation letter on HR's desk. That is important later. I had tendered it to be immediate, as I live in an at-will state. Was it petty? Yes, I will freely admit that. I had given 8 years of my life to this company and asked for very little in return. As I was leaving, I crossed paths with my supervisor, who asked angrily if I was finally coming back to work. I informed him of my decision to leave, ignoring his provocations, and left to go home and sleep. Several hours later, I received the gift that would ignite my semi-accidental revenge. A single text from my ASM. We will see how long you can take care of your love child without us. Well, seems I found my probable source. My friends had been made aware of this rumor from the start. I did not hide anything from them, and they did not want any kind of rumor, however unlikely, to reach them from anyone but me. They are my closest friends and compatriots, and have given me the greatest gift in the form of my godchild, whom they insist I call my niece, as I am family. Love child feels like an insult against her, and I am not cool with that, and neither are they. However, they informed me of the monumental mess-up my now former ASM had made. It was time for corporate HR to be made aware, and so I began to compile my evidence, the texts from my supervisor, the call records and messages left, and this holy grail of a text message. If I was going to leave, I was at the very least going to give some blowback on the team that had been so willing to target me. What happened after is secondhand from friends I had that still worked at the store, and so I cannot entirely verify all of it. But the ASM played herself. The following day, a meeting of management and supervisors was convened, where the ASM made it known that I had been fired, not self-terminated, for job abandonment and immorality. And unless I am grossly misinformed about the nature of American retail work, immorality is not a fireable event. So to my supervisor's credit, he defended me to the ASM and was fired on the spot. The store's HR rep, having earlier gotten my printed termination letter on his desk, made it known that I had indeed not been fired but left on my own, and the ASM attempted to fire him as well in front of the staff, and from there it spiraled. According to my source, entire departments began to walk out or outright quit, having had their own problems with the ASM. Appliances quit to a man. Garden left with their manager to work at a competitor's, as he had been working on this well before my saga began. Front desk walked out in protest as it came out that the ASM had threatened and blackmailed several part-time workers to not wear their headscarves if they wanted hours. Lumber, receiving's main partner, quit. Pro desk joined the front desk protest. Cashiers, both head cashiers quit, and the other trained cashiers walked out with the desks. Ops manager had informed the district manager and quit outright before he arrived, walking out with the HR rep and my old supervisor. My source's last report of the ASM was seeing her sprinting to her car after having heard that the district staff was inbound and the store manager was forced to shut the store down for the next 2 days. Last I've heard. I've been in contact with the other injured parties, and we're compiling all the evidence we've collected, as several of the families are hiring lawyers. I suspect the company will attempt to keep this quiet. I just never suspected that anything like this would happen. I have a full-time position at the gym upcoming, and I've been enjoying the extra sleep and time I get to spend with my family. I'm never working 56 to 64-hour weeks ever again, and I will never darken the doorstep of that store again. I hope my ASM enjoyed the temporary rush of power. I suspect she won't get it ever again, at least not in manager positions. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.